Hey, what's up everyone? So in this video today, I'm going to be talking about how to hold a shotgun for trap shooting. See you in a second. Alright, so I got the idea for this video from someone that had commented on one of my previous videos asking how tight I like to hold both the comb of the gun and the butt of the gun onto my shoulder and my face. So thank you for the video idea. I'm going to be covering that in this video, so let's go ahead and get to it here. I think the first thing that I want to cover in terms of how to hold a shotgun for trap shooting, competitive shooting, is let's go ahead and cover the forearm. So the first thing I want to say before I get started though is definitely don't feel like there is one way to hold a gun. One amount of pressure is right for everybody. You know, we're all a little bit different, we're all built differently, so there is varying styles and such that you're going to find. What I'm going to be showing is some general things that I think are good rules to go by, and also kind of giving, based on my experience and what's worked well for me, some advice on that. So one thing that I do see people do a lot on the forearm whenever they hold it is they can grip it too tight and do what's called white knuckle it, where your fingers essentially turn white because you're holding the gun really tight. Now I've actually been guilty of this quite a bit in the past. It's something I've had to work on. So the first thing I think that we need to talk about whenever we're talking about forearm grip is grip pressure. You don't want to hold it too firm so that your hands or your knuckles, your ends of your fingers are turning white, but you want to hold it firm so that you're in control of the gun. You don't just want to be loosely holding on to it. You know, you want to have a solid grip, but you don't want to be really death gripping it. Just a nice, firm, gentle, solid grip that's not too tight that your fingers are turning white, but just firm and solid enough to be in control of the gun throughout the entire shot and the recoil. Now, in terms of the actual hand position, I prefer to be something about like that, with one finger, my index finger, roughly kind of more towards the corner of the forearm. My thumb is on the top right from my angle of the forearm, and I have three fingers resting on the side here essentially. Now, this isn't a huge deal where you put your fingers at, because like I said, everybody's different. Everybody's hands are different sizes, everybody has different comfort levels at different positions. I've seen guys hold it like this with their index finger and their middle finger on one side. I've seen guys hold the barrel. One thing that I would recommend whenever you're doing this is just to make sure what works best for you. So what can you be the most relaxed at? What takes the most torque out of your wrist so that you're not sitting there really in an awkward position? What feels the most comfortable? And also, I've seen guys touch the barrel, and I've seen them get blisters whenever they're shooting in the heat or after shooting for extended period of time, because the barrel will get hot, or maybe touching the latch that you use to take the forearm off of the gun. I think that you want to avoid touching metal as much as possible. That way you don't have the side effect of a blister whenever you're in a big tournament. That would be one thing that I would give a tidbit there to watch out for, is make sure you're not touching any metal, and just try to find what works best for you, what feels the most comfortable, how you feel in control of the gun, but at the same time not holding the gun too tight. I think once you find that, that'll help you out, and you'll kind of find that nice, happy spot to hold the forearm. Okay, so let's move on now to talk about the trigger grip and how to rest your finger on the trigger. Now, there are, once again, a few different methods to this, but I think there are some general rules that we can kind of go by that are general guidelines so that you can kind of formulate your own way to hold your hand on the trigger so that you can find the best way that's right for you. You want to hold in a manner on the trigger that is comfortable and at the same time allows you to get a firm grip on the gun. So the back end of the gun is key, the trigger grip. It's key to controlling your move to the target. It's key to just being in command of the gun through a whole shot. But once again, I don't think that you want to white knuckle it. I think that you just want to have a solid grip. Now, a lot of the time you'll see guys vary on this, and that is they will wrap their thumb around like this, or you have guys that put their thumb on the side like that. My opinion on this is do what feels best to you. I don't think, I see a lot of guys that have their thumb wrapped around the stock of the gun and they break really high scores. At the same time, I see a lot of guys that have their thumb placed on the side of the stock and they break a lot of really high scores. So what feels the most comfortable to you? That's the key to figuring out how to hold the shotgun. What's the comfort level? What allows you to break the target the best? And go with that. Personally, I wrap my thumb around on the top. That's just what feels the most comfortable to me. And then I have my 3 fingers here on the other side, like so. Now, I'm not going to try to death grip this. Like I said, I want to be firm and in control, but not death grip. Now, like I said, it's easy for me to death grip. This is something that I struggle with, is to come out there and just absolutely grip the gun as hard as I can so that I can be in the most control of the gun. But that's really unnecessary, and it puts unnecessary strain on your wrists and your hands and your arms that over the length of a whole shooting season can build up and cause you problems down the road. Now, as for the actual trigger part of the gun, one thing that I do recommend and can recommend based on my past experiences, make sure that you are firmly on the trigger. You don't want to be off to the side where you're touching the edge, possibly the trigger, rubbing your finger against the trigger guard. You want to make sure that the meat of your finger is right in the middle. So personally, I tend to be somewhere between this first joint and the middle of my finger there, kind of the fleshy part, if you will. That's where I tend to put my finger at on the trigger. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but that's what I found to be the most successful, that the guys that bring in a lot of consistent scores tend to do that. That's what they seem to recommend. And so that's what I've generally found to be the best. I'm sure there are some exceptions to that. We all know everybody's body build's a little bit different. But I think that works good most of the time. The important thing is if you have an adjustable trigger like this one is, where you have the length, I want to have it to a point where I'm not having to reach forward. So I don't want my finger like this. What that's going to do is that's going to cause my finger to rub on the side of the actual trigger, and it's going to rub it raw and rub a blister. I've had that experience over week-long trap tournaments. It's really tough, guys, to shoot with a blister on your finger, believe me. So make sure that you don't touch the side of that trigger consistently, because over a period of 2,000, 3,000 shells in a tournament, it will build up and it will cause a blister, and it's not a good situation to be in. So be sure and watch out for that. I want to be in a way with my trigger where I'm firmly just on it. You can see I have a little bit of a bend, almost like that, just a little bit of a bend. I'm not totally flat, if you will, but I have a pretty good bend in my finger. I'm not straight. I'm just right in that good little method there to pull the trigger, right in that good little sweet spot for me personally. This is something you're going to have to adjust, especially if you're a young person and you're still growing. Maybe if you're a youth shooter, your hands are getting bigger. So you want to watch this, because it can creep up on you and it can cause you to have blisters, or it could cause you to jerk. That's one thing I think, if you get too long on your trigger adjustment, that it could cause a blister. But if you get it too short, it could possibly cause you to flinch and not be real comfortable whenever you're pulling triggers. Okay, so moving on to the end of the gun, let's talk about the comb and the butt pad. Now, these are 2 areas that I would say are incredibly essential to great trap shooting, especially the comb of the gun, making sure that you have a firm placement on the comb. Personally, early on when I started shooting, I slammed my head on the comb very, very hard. A lot of times, I could even get a crick in my neck after shooting for a little while, so I don't recommend going that hard. What shooting has taught me is that firmness and correct placement of the comb onto your face is more important than necessarily how hard. Yes, you need to be hard on the comb. You need to be firm. You need to be dug into the comb good. But, I've seen guys that just kind of place it just barely on there, but they're firm, and they're not really pushing down that hard, and it works great for them. So it's about the placement of the comb on the cheek. You got to have that spot that feels great to you, that allows you to make it the same every time, make it the most comfortable. For some people, they'll start and they'll place the comb of the gun on their face at their where they grit their teeth. Some people the top gun line. That's more me. That top gun line gum line, I tend to place it there. That just really feels comfortable to me. Everybody's going to be a little bit different on that, so kind of experiment. Have a firm pressure on the comb. Don't really slam it down too hard, but at the same time you don't want to be really soft because that'll cause you to take your head off the gun. So make sure you're just firmly in there. Have that anchor spot, if you will, on your cheek so that you can make it the same way every time. And that'll allow you to stay in the gun. And at the same time, you're not going to be pushing too hard so you get a crick in your neck like I did early on. But you're also going to be able to stay in the gun because you're firm enough. Now moving on to the last part here, and that is the butt pad that actually goes on your shoulder. This is something that is pretty important because it's going to dictate your ability to control your gun and to absorb recoil. So one time last year actually, I switched from left-handed to right-handed. One of the first things that I noticed that I had never ever noticed before is the difference in the grip pressure that I was placing on the trigger. So I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, but I'm talking about the amount of strength that I held right here. That is going to dictate, that is really what dictates how firm you're putting it on the shoulder, is this back hand here. Yes, your hand on the forearm does play a little bit of a role in it, but I feel like most of the pressure that you put on your shoulder in terms of how far you're pulling the gun into, how hard you're pulling the gun into it, is right here on this hand that is on the trigger guard. It's not out here on the forearm. Now, like I said, this does dictate it, so you got to watch it, the forearm, but this is most of it, I feel like. And so you have to be careful there that you're not pushing back too hard. So for me, what I noticed was whenever I pulled back too hard on a recoil reduction system, like in doubles, I wasn't fully resetting whenever I went back up to the second target, so that was where it was hurting me. So make sure, once again, kind of like all the other stuff, that you're not really slamming it in or white knuckling it. You just want to be firm, you want to be in control of the gun, but you don't want to be too hard. This is something that you want to have good control of the gun because you don't want the gun jumping around on your shoulder or anything, whenever you have recoil. So find that pocket of your shoulder, place it in there, and then just, pull back firm. Don't white knuckle it, but pull back firm. Make sure that it feels comfortable. That's the key. I think that we keep coming back to that point, but make sure that it feels comfortable. You have to customize this to your experience level, to what feels really good to you, and also to what you have for your equipment. So I think if you have a precision fit stock, a Pro Soft, something like that, that has the reduction system that comes in and then goes back out, you have to be really careful about grip pressure because you don't want to be negating your recoil reduction system whenever you're going to a second target in doubles, for example. Yes, you can adjust the recoil tension, but the tighter you adjust the recoil tension on these systems, the less recoil reduction you're going to get. So this is where it gets really important. I recommend to people that they're firm, that they are just in control of the gun, in control of the movement, in command of it, but at the same time you're not white knuckling it, you're not too hard, you're just nice and relaxed and comfortable. You don't want tensed up muscles or anything like that. So thank you guys for watching today. This is something that I think there's a lot of varying opinions on, and a lot of them are correct. There's a lot of different ways that you can pull a shotgun for target shooting. These are just some of the suggestions that I would say to consider whenever you're kind of in the midst of formulating how you're holding the gun so that you can find the best route for you. And just try to take these, make sure you're not white knuckling it. That's something that, like I said, can cause buildup in your wrist. It can cause inflammation stuff in your wrist to build up, which isn't going to be good. Long term, over the course of the season especially, you just want them to have nice, firm control without getting too hard. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. You can subscribe to my channel here. You can watch another video here. Have a great rest of your day.